Hey, yo, man, check this shit out. Some people don't know what it's all about. I'm ordering a pizza in another state and telling them to throw it in the dumpster. What do you think's gonna happen? Hey, I want to order a large cheese pizza. Can you put pickles on it?
We don't have large pizza, man. We have just small personal size.
Okay. After I order that, can you just take it out back and throw it in the dumpster?
What do you say?
You have a dumpster out back?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't want you to actually deliver the pizza to me. I just want you to take it out back and throw it in the dumpster. I want delivery, but I want you to deliver it into the dumpster out back. Okay, let me give you my credit card number. It's 4266. If you were Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh, you'd assume that in about 30 minutes, there's going to be a pizza in a dumpster in Brooklyn. When in reality, if there's even any pizza at all, it's probably going to be in somebody's mouth. And no voter is ever going to know or care that I got cheated. One of them might hear like maybe a fake rumor about it or something. It's the same thing with cops. Telling cops what the law orders them to do doesn't mean they're going to follow it or get it right when nobody's looking. And in the real world, due process, in other words, bringing everything in a court, setting it down, making it publicly visible, comparing it to the law, due process is the only way to make sure cops or anybody else does what they're ordered to do, whether by the law or by a private customer over the phone like I just was. But the Supreme Court has a different word for due process. The Supreme Court calls that judicial second guessing, so that it's actually, according to the Supreme Court, it's illegal to infringe someone's rights with due process of law. It's illegal for a cop to be forced to go in front of a court and prove that he didn't violate the law and he followed it. That's actually illegal, and having a cop do whatever he wants is legal because the Supreme Court, and particularly Justice Brett Kavanaugh, is utopian communists who imagine that the executive branch, acting under their own whim, is going to know what people want and altruistically serve public needs without anybody needing to watch them because they're all-knowing and born good-hearted, or God even knows what it is that communists think. In Noem v. Perdomo, Justice Kavanaugh said this. He said, after the fact, judicial second-guessing will inevitably chill lawful immigration enforcement effort. So in other words, courts measuring fact against law to make sure police don't violate statute is preventing cops from enforcing statute. But cops harassing whoever they want equals enforcement of statute, because police have it in their hearts to know who the criminals are and to want to enforce the law and to help the public. And that just comes from inside cops who have this perfect information. Kavanaugh imagines that what police will do when nobody is looking is enforce statutes for the public benefit, rather than just harm people or serve their own agenda or create conflict. Just like utopian academics imagined that factory managers in the USSR would make products the public needs, rather than lie to the superiors, lie to government, sell inputs on the black market. And the utopian imagination doesn't work in reality in the Soviet Union or to protect Fourth Amendment rights in the United States. So Justice Brett Kavanaugh imagines that when you insert prices or you insert laws enforced in court, suddenly cops or factory managers become less likely to do what they're supposed to do. Oversight, incentives, instructions make them less likely to do what they're supposed to do. Whereas some kind of, hippie thing where the cops want to do the right thing is going to make sure they do it, as long as nobody's looking, as long as courts don't harass them. Kavanaugh is an idiot communist college kid. according to this utopian economics that these college freshmen on the Supreme Court must be stoned to recite, everybody in government knows what the right thing to do is and wants to do it, but only cops have the case-specific information, so that a cop is going to act perfectly based on information at his own vantage point and based on his own agenda, but a court that's more knowledgeable about the law and exposed to more regulation by public oversight and appeals and all that is going to act imperfectly because the court can't see everything the cop sees. And he thinks that rather than a cop needing to be told what to do and monitor and penalized by case-by-case supervision by courts, not just general 5,000 feet up by the voters, but a court looking at the facts of every case to make sure a cop is penalized if he doesn't follow the law. Kavanaugh's equivalence of what cops want to do and will do when nobody can see with enforcement of statute and public benefit is the same as the communist belief that factory managers will serve the public absent external supervision conveyed to them as prices. Why is a cop going to follow the law absent being told to by courts and forced to produce evidence of his activities? There's no reason to limit this to police. Justice Kavanaugh might equally assume that I would enforce statutes, or that any crowd or social group is just going to automatically enforce statutes as long as the courts don't harass them if they're just left to do whatever they want. Kavanaugh hasn't specified any or what mechanism would cause me or any crowd of people to enforce statute other than court oversight. Does Kavanaugh think a 51% margin of victory every 4 years in a national election is going to know or address the circumstances of individual cases? Like if a cop were to walk up here right now and harass me, you think any voter would ever know about that, much less care? No. And the cop could just lie about it, lie in his police report. Voters are never going to know or care what a cop does to me. It's just physically impossible because there's millions of cop interactions and voters are going to be voting based on inflation. They will never know or care what that cop does. So, Justice Kavanaugh said, any time that the government is enjoined by a federal court from effectuating statutes enacted by representatives of its people, it suffers a form of irreparable injury. So, how do you know cops have enforced any statute other than by examination in court of what they've done? Are cops born with statutes and a desire to enforce them written in their genetic code? So Kavanaugh equates courts making sure cops enforce statute with stopping cops enforcing statute, whereas cops doing whatever they want, well, that's enforcing statute. And if cops aren't allowed to do whatever the hell's in their heart or whatever the crooked, corrupt thing is, well, they're not allowed to enforce statute then. Anytime a cop acts without review of his actions by a court, the rule of law suffers an irreparable injury. A court not verifying what he does is a permanent, instant, irreparable injury to the rule of law. That's what it says in the Fourth Amendment, that there's a process roadblock, a hearing by sworn testimony under penalty of perjury in a court before a judge. And if you don't do that, if a court doesn't judicial second guess the cop's activity, the rule of law, and actually a specific written law, the Fourth Amendment's been violated, but the law the cop is supposed to be enforcing is violated because the Fourth Amendment is not forcing him to enforce the law and not violate the law. Every time courts are not able to examine and bring to light exactly what cops are doing and compare it to law, it's a harm to the public interest. Like every time a pizzeria or a factory in the Soviet Union or a cop just well, I think this is what I'm going to do, that's a harm to the public interest because the public interest hasn't been conveyed to him, and the fact that he served that order, that public interest, has not been verified. Every time cops are allowed to do what they want without courts verifying it against law, it's a harm to the public interest. Justice Kavanaugh thinks a cop being forced to demonstrate to a court that he only harmed people who broke the law equals not being allowed to enforce statute. The same as college kids think capitalism is making us poor when we could instead use some social process to supervise businesses. Kavanaugh misunderstands why we have courts, laws, rights, separation of powers. Like all academics, Kavanaugh imagines there's some other way to supervise police or workers. It's some vague belief. He has some vague belief in the collective creating order through political speech, like, around like a drum circle, like a bunch of hippies in the woods. We don't need no laws and courts. I'm gonna know what you want, and I'm gonna do it for you, and you're gonna do it for me, like some hippie love song, right? I don't know how this guy Kavanaugh gets so damn stoned. He really needs to, get out in the freaking real world. Utopian imagination that workers will do good unless courts or capitalism muck it up is for high school kids on acid, not judges who are there because they won't. They won't do good unless their incentives are conveyed to police as laws. Kavanaugh implied with his opinion that police being given the benefit of the doubt to detain anyone they want without judicial second guessing will be more likely to know and enforce statutes based on actual case facts, rather than oversight by courts making it more likely a person detained has actually broken the law and a cop has not. So Kavanaugh thinks that when he steps in, suddenly cops become less likely to follow the law. Like, if I didn't tell that pizza order guy, what to do with my pizza, I'm just going to sit here and just smoke. Because if I start bothering that pizza guy, well, he's not going to make my pizza, right? How stoned do you have to be? Kavanaugh's childish assumption that imperfect people acting independently on their own information and agenda and doing it without incentives or oversight by courts and law are going to altruistically know and serve the preferences of strangers who can't see what they're doing is something for high school kids to hallucinate when they drop acid. There's no reason to believe that by freeing police from oversight by courts, they're going to be more likely to enforce statutes than violate them. Unless you take too much acid, listen to too much John Lennon, or maybe you're just addicted to being called a genius by lawless thugs that you enable. So, when one of these dumbass Supreme Court justices, these pompous freaking jokes, this buffoon Scalia goes, I think the purpose of history and law is for the executive branch to do whatever they want. And then all these people who work in the executive branch go, oh my God, Scalia's a genius. He proved using law that I can do whatever the hell I want. This guy must have like a 200 IQ. Yeah, you're really smart. Then Scalia goes, he really believes that people think he's smart, that he's really figured out what the hidden, written, unwritten Constitution says, that cops can do whatever the hell they want. And cops go, man, this guy Scalia, he's like got alien smarts. Justice Kavanaugh's vague sense of like a human connection manifesting through police belongs in Golden Gate Park in 1967. Kavanaugh must have dropped acid before he wrote this garbage in Noem v. Perdomo. Kavanaugh is a child in the job of a man, and that makes him a dangerous monster.